to do?
Didn't work out.
Didn't work out?
No.
You got your position.
Next time.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Design Review Board public meeting of December 12th, 2019 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be asked to speak by the board when your case is called. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed in the event of a return for redesign is asked to completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be noticed in the event of a return for redesign by the postcard. Current Design Review Board agendas are available on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board appeals is available at the table by the front door. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Arzumanian.
Here.
Board Member Boyajian.
Here.
Board Member Welch.
Present.
Board Member Simonian is running late and he will be joining us. And Chairman Benlian.
Present.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on December 5th, 2019. Oral communications discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication cards and I do not believe any were submitted, which brings us to the review calendar and tonight's agenda with two cases. So at that, I'd like to turn this meeting over to Chairman Benlian.
Thank you. Thank you, Vilya. Good evening, everybody. We have almost half full house today, so it's good. So we'll go and start with the first case, PDR number 1912061, 722 West Kenneth Road, and we'll kick it to staff and we'll start with your report.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Benlian and board members. My name is Cassandra Pruitt. I'm the case planner on the project. And the project under consideration is the demolition of an approximately 3,200 square foot, two-story house built in 1922 and later modified, and the construction of an approximately 4,300 square foot, new two-story house. The subject site is located on West Kenneth Road, a few blocks west of Pacific Avenue and near the center of the Glenwood neighborhood. Regarding demolition of the existing house, and as more fully described in the staff report, the original portion of the existing house was designed in 1922 by master architect Paul R. Williams for the Arnold family, and a later addition was designed by Glendale architect Claire Earle, also a designer of interest. However, because of significant additions and alterations to the building over time, it is no longer recognizable as the work of these individuals or as the home in which the Arnolds lived. The property, therefore, is not eligible for listing in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources and is not considered a historic resource under the California Environmental Quality Act. In terms of construction of the new house, the proposed design takes advantage of certain site conditions and, as conditioned in the staff report, demonstrates compliance with the comprehensive design guidelines. The subject site is a large interior lot, approximately 23,000 square feet in size, with a slight downslope from the street. The proposed house is set back 68 feet from the street, in line with adjacent properties, and at a location where the elevation is 5 feet lower than the street. Because the building is lower than street level, the apparent height of the two-story mass as viewed from the street will be reduced. The design also incorporates other techniques to reduce massing as viewed from the street, including setting the second story back from the first story between 4 to 6 feet at the front facade, and having a one-story front porch and front balcony that further break up the massing. The two-story house is consistent with the neighborhood, which has 7 other two-story houses in the vicinity. The neo-French revival architectural style of the house is appropriate to the neighborhood, which has an eclectic mix of traditional style homes. The building uses high-quality materials, finishes, and architectural details appropriate to the style, including roofing resembling slate tiles, smooth stucco, limestone-clad siding, recessed fiberglass windows in a dark gray color, precast decorative columns and window moldings, decorative wrought iron railing, etc. The proposed second-story balcony at the rear is set back from the side facade by 6 feet and is located over 25 feet from the property line and 30 feet from the neighbor's windows. Window locations are offset from the neighbor's windows to further preserve privacy. No comments regarding the project were received by staff from any members of the public. For these reasons and the additional analysis presented in the staff report, staff recommends approving the project with conditions. The proposed conditions relate to minor building details that need to be refined and reviewed, including the location of 2 lights, consistency of balcony railing patterns, removal of 4 small pony walls, and matching the garage roofing material to the house. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and if you'd like me to read the exact wording of the conditions, I'm happy to do that as well.
I think we're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. So, Vidya, I only have one card. Is that the only card
Yes.
for this project?
That is the only card that was submitted at this
Okay.
time.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and open up the public comment portion, and we'll have the only card holder and the designer of the project, Chris Aslanian, to.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Name and address.
Always nice to be here. Chris Aslanian, living in Glendale, 1015 North Everett Street, City of Glendale, California. The house is for a pretty young family who always lived in Glendale, and they wanted to build a house to raise a family. We started the project when they had only 2 kids. Now they already have 3, and I'm glad it's a house designed for a family that could build this house and live in this house for hopefully many, many, many years to come. Originally, we wanted to do a 1,000 square feet addition to an existing house, but we started as that, and then we realized that adding to an existing house, which was done with several different architects, and all the small additions that were done, and the roof line and the elevation, it was not a problem. We've tried many different things, and then finally we said we would rather just do a new house rather than just keeping all those small pieces of architectural different elements that occurred through the years. So we would do a new house, and the choice of architectural was pretty much French, old French villa. And based on that assumption that we wanted to do old French villa, we've looked at the buildings around it, all the architectural elements that the other buildings have. This area is just very interesting. I always loved this area of Kennett, with large lot, beautiful houses, and this was very. I wanted to do something really nice on this project, and I hope we achieved it. Of course, having in mind that the DRB requirements, City of Glendale code, height limitations. Usually French houses have really steep roof and they look really bulky and big. So we had to work with what we had, but still to maintain the beautiful look of French houses as much as possible. That's all I had to say. If there's any questions, we're more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Chris. Let me
Thank
see
you.
if my colleagues have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question on the windows, in particular those on the front facade. How deeply recessed are they from the main surface of the house?
They're recessed about 3.5 inches. And one thing I'm doing, you can see that on detail,
There's
we are
section
not
of 4.1.
putting the moldings just on the facade of the walls. So the moldings have the L shape. They go into the window as well. So in a way, in a lot of architectural buildings in Glendale, when you look at it, they put the window, they stucco it, and then they just stick the the moldings into the stucco. I didn't want that look. I wanted more of a for a house like this on this location, I wanted to have that beautiful look on to the house, and that's on the detail. So molding is just not one piece, it's 2 pieces that from one side attaches to the window, and the other side comes out, and you see the whole thing as just piece going all around the windows.
Yeah, we want it recessed like that. Any other questions from anybody else has questions for the designer?
Actually, about the pony walls that were mentioned as a condition, can you speak to that at all?
I don't know which pony walls, because we have a few. Are we talking about the ones that are on a lot on a first floor, or on the ones that are on the second floor? I want to clarify.
It mentioned second floor.
Yeah, the ones.
In the
Yeah,
corners.
the reason I put those things, I wanted to break kind of the second floor edge of the second floor, and I thought that was kind of something that was helping the building. That's why I have those. If we are talking about those on the second
Yeah,
floor.
we're talking about the kind of curved little buttressy
Yes,
pony walls,
yes.
which have different scales and shapes and didn't really seem to fit the style so much, or maybe they could be more regularized if you think the walls look okay.
I thought so. I thought they were helping the architecture. They're kind of filling the void, and I didn't want that on classical buildings. I didn't want that straight cut, and I was thinking there was something need to be done in there. And since I had to have that setback, I thought that's an interesting architectural element, and it's been used through the centuries on all of the architectural. Maybe the sizing can be changed if you could work with DRB on those, if that would kind of help it. We're more than happy to work with those.
Could they be removed completely, or?
They could be, but I don't think they're going to help the building.
Curious.
You have something to say?
Regarding these pony walls, yes. To me, honestly, I think I covered those walls somehow to compare without them and with them. I don't see any issue by having them, particularly on north elevation. They look really, really nice and smoothly rezoning second floor with the first floor. But they are quite different in those dimensions. If it's possible to make them equal, the one on the left side on north elevation and the one on the right side.
We can cover the comment portion later, but do you want to ask him something specific? Which dimension
There's a reason for different dimensions.
Yes, the second floor is set back more on a left side than on a right side, and I was just trying to make sure that it covers the whole space, entire space. That's why as it grows, I kept the same shape. We got larger on one side and smaller on the other side. But it's something that we can work out architecturally, make it both similar. I don't see any issues with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers on the project? No? So we'll go ahead and close the public comments and open it up for deliberation, and I'll start with Chris.
I have some mixed feelings about it. I think, generally speaking, size and scale-wise, it fits well with the neighborhood. I can appreciate the desire for having high quality. I am a little concerned about the moldings around the windows, and being perceived as just tacked on, sort of stucco-y look. So how those are executed is going to be really important, and that's why I was asking about the deepness of the recession. Because if they're not deeply reset enough, they're going to just look like, a tract house with tacked-on moldings, and I don't think we want that. And I'm a little concerned also about the monumentality of the entranceway. I know it's been broken up to make it appear less monumental, but it's still, it's one of those borderline ones, and I know that's sort of a subjective area of decision-making, but I guess I would prefer it to be a little bit more understated than it is. But generally speaking, the style, I'm okay with. I think it's appropriate to the neighborhood. Being set back from the house and, with those big orange trees in the front that sort of block it, it's definitely going to be, not quite overwhelming on the street at all.
I would say your comment about the front is appropriate, but I didn't have an issue with it, given the fact that it's set back 60
Yeah.
some feet. 60 some feet, and the elevation
And the
is
elevation
lower.
change, true.
So, yeah, but that was a good comment. Anything else you want to add?
I think maybe the lighting on the front, you know, the staff talked about removing the two that were under the porch, but there's also these other ones spread across the facade, and I think that might be just a little excessive amount of lighting. But I'm open to other people's perspective on that too, so.
That's another comment I was gonna make to staff and Jay. I had a project, they didn't allow me more than 2 lights. Okay, so next, what you wanna cover?
I would comment regarding the lighting also, and I agree with that with staff that they are not appropriately located on the front elevation. When I compare rendering and the elevation drawings, actually the heights of the lights on the rendering and on the elevations, even on the sides of the adjacent windows, it's to the left side of the door and right side, they are different. So I believe more in on elevation, that is to me more correct. But my suggestion is not only for the front elevation, since on the left side we have symmetrically located the slidings next to each window. So I suggest, if it is possible, to have them located on the right side too. So because it's like, and still to have that light on the edge on the right side, we can maintain it. So we'll have 3 lights on the right side. But the lights on the front main elevation, I think they should be removed. Maybe for the lighting reasons, maybe we can utilize ceiling of the cover over there, maybe recessed lighting, somehow to illuminate the style of the lights and location, so it's kind of invisible but still light. Functionality will remain, but without the fixtures. And I think fixtures on the elevations are more appropriate. Yeah, these are, and I saw the comment stuff about the railing. Again, on the rendering and on the drawings, they are completely different. So I agree with the drawings more than with the renderings. I would minimize the curvy designs if it's possible, and because French balconies, I mean Juliet balconies and other balconies railings, they are again different. So maybe we can pick one of the styles and to have more vertical accents. Maybe somehow. I like, honestly, the ones on the left side. More in the French classical, neoclassical style. So these are my comments so far.
Thank you, Ms. Boyajian. We can go to Ms. Arjumanian.
All right, thank you. I really like the design. The colors look great, and I appreciate the size, mass, and the scale that is fitting the neighborhood. I was going to echo my colleagues' comments. I do think the lights are excessive, and the fact that both sides are not matching. You have one in the front north elevation in one side and 2 at the other. It doesn't look good. I think on the ones by the front door can be completely eliminated, and just make sure that there is a balance on both sides. That would be one comment. And about the railings, yes, I don't really have a preference, but obviously they need to match and be consistent throughout. That would help a lot. There was one more thing.
Pony walls.
Pony walls?
The pony walls, thank you. I don't have issue of them being there. They're actually, I don't agree that architecturally they don't match, or I don't know what the comment was.
To remove them.
To remove them? remove or make it a stucco wall. I don't mind them to be pony walls, but the fact that they're different sizes, it doesn't look good to me. But I wouldn't mind for them to stay as they are, but consistent in size, or be removed completely. For them
Perhaps
to be a little,
modify the condition a little bit, to have them work with staff
Yeah.
on readjusting them a little bit.
I would support that. Yeah, for it to be a low stucco wall, I would leave it to the architect to decide, but I would comment on the size. They should match. That's about
Okay.
it.
Thank you, Ms. Arjumanian. I kind of echo similar comments to my colleagues. I think the designer, Mr. Aslanian, did a wonderful job detailing, and I really like the site plan. I appreciate the fact that it's set back from the street. I appreciate the fact that you didn't try to bring it up and you didn't try to go to the maximum height. I think it works. I think in terms of site planning, you did an excellent job. In terms of mass and scale, you also did an excellent job. In terms of detailing, I appreciate the fact that you detailed all sides of all elevations. A lot of the projects that we get, they focus a lot on the front elevation and they neglect the side elevations and the rear elevation. Your elevations are like, if I look at the rear elevation can be a front elevation, which is definitely an excellent and a positive thing. I also want to commend staff on. I know it takes so much work to get to this level, and this is not your first version, and you go through so many rounds with them, and they bring so much value to the process. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I'm mentioning that because I agree with their 6 comments as they wrote them. I heard my colleagues saying touch the pony wall, change them. I think you either remove them or you redesign them to fit better. I get the style maybe goes with the overall, but again, we don't want to get stuck on this minor detail. You have a beautiful house, and you've done a wonderful work all around. I would stay consistent with the railing. I like your details for the windows. I don't think they're gonna look tacky, or the recess is the way to go on with this style. I like also the treatment you've done in the front with the front with the curve V, and you kind of like blended your roof in it just to reduce the mass. I think it's designed in a clever way, and I appreciate the attention to detail. I think it's a good project, and I like the conditions as they are. And if you guys want to suggest something else, we can deliberate. But if somebody wants to make a motion on this project with the conditions as stated, we can also entertain that motion.
So I would say number 1 kind of changed, right? Remove or relocate the lights. I had one comment just to make sure it's sort of like consistent. On one side we have 1 light and 2 on the other, but if that's not
Yeah, that's.
issue.
I don't think that's remove and reduce like the way the staff
think that
the staff wrote it gives the architect more room to like play with it and decide which route he wants to go.
Just to fill you in on, the decision for that was basically because they're up so high on the wall because of the side lights next to the door. It felt they were very oddly placed within the entryway.
Yeah, and that's why I agree with the comment. Yeah, I think it's a very valid condition as it stands. So I would myself, I would leave the conditions as they are. But if you guys think otherwise, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I agree with most of the conditions.
So somebody want to make a motion?
Could we just get a little, there was a lot of discussion about the pony walls, and I'm not sure the condition is written matches the discussion that we heard. Unless you want to make the motion.
I think the motion that we're thinking about is remove the pony walls on the second floor, or I guess, redesign them.
Yeah, I would suggest we amend it to remove or redesign to have
More consistent
consistency.
size.
And we'll leave
Yeah.
it to staff to
Shape.
decide if
Yeah, I think
if
that's appropriate.
that's the direction we're thinking. And with that, I can entertain a motion, actually.
I move to approve the project with stated conditions.
Anybody, any second?
I'm
Second.
Ms. Boyajian seconded.
Okay. Look this side.
I have a motion made by Board Member Arzumanian, a second by Board Member Boyajian. In terms of roll call, Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Arzumanian,
Yes.
Board Member Boyajian,
Yes.
and Chairman Benlian.
Yes,
The motion passes 4-0.
good luck.
Thank you.
We can move to our next item on the agenda, which is PDR number 191-4226, and the address is 423 to 429 Oak Street. And if Mr. Simonian, he's here, he can join us.
Hi.
Oh, and let the record show that Board Member Simonian has joined our meeting.
Good evening.
You?
Hi.
Oh, I see.
And we are ready if you guys are. You ready? Okay, so we'll go to the next case, 423 to 429 Oak Street, and we'll kick it off with staff's report, and we'll turn it on to Chris.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Design Review Board members. This next case is a proposed multifamily residential building consisting of 18 units, a 4-story building with 20 parking spaces in a subterranean parking garage. And the project will include 2 very low-income affordable housing units. Prior to the design review application, the project received approval for a density bonus housing plan, and the applicant requested 3 exceptions from the zoning code, and those are an increase in the allowable floor area ratio, an increase in height, and number of stories, and a reduction in the additional required open space, which gets triggered when the property has a lot width of 90 feet or greater, which is the case here. Staff has worked with the applicant prior to the design review application to refine the building design. The project proposes the demolition of the existing 4 buildings on the property, 4 dwelling units, and for the construction of the proposed building. The existing buildings have been reviewed by staff, and they were also part of the 2018 South Glendale Historic Resource Survey, and they were determined that they were not eligible to be listed on any of the listing, at any of the listing levels. With respect to compliance with the design guidelines, both the site planning, the building massing, and the design details are consistent with the design guidelines. The site planning is consistent with the neighboring multifamily residential buildings in terms of site layout. The building massing is also consistent with the neighboring multifamily buildings. The volume of the building is adequately articulated, both with materials, colors, and volumes. And the detailing includes a number of different materials, finished materials, and accent materials like metal awnings. Staff's recommendation is to approve the project with a number of conditions to bring the building further into consistency with the design guidelines and the zoning code. The conditions briefly are to provide and integrate seating and other amenities in the open space, common open space, to encourage its use, to provide a decorative material for the driveway and for the walkways, to provide a decorative material for the perimeter walls, to provide details of downspouts, which are not shown on the plans, and this includes a provision that if the downspouts would be visible unless concealed in the building, to provide details, and to provide details of exterior lighting, and also one condition to replace the proposed white vinyl windows with the original dark bronze-colored windows or dark gray-colored windows that staff had discussed with the applicant at the pre-application discussions. We've received three pieces of correspondence electronically. We've made copies and distributed those to the board members as well as to the applicant and the property owner. Having said this, I'd like to conclude my presentation unless there are questions from the board.
Does, Mr. Chair,
Go for it.
does staff have any preference of type of windows, or is this the color that we're talking about?
It's the color.
Okay, thank
When we discussed this multiple times at the pre-application
Was it dark gray?
review, it was proposed, the windows were proposed to have dark frames, and when the project was submitted, that was switched to light or white frames. Staff's opinion is that dark frames coordinate better with the building design and the colors that have been proposed, and that hence the condition.
And the other question I have is, had this not been an density bonus project, what would the height limit would have been under this scenario?
The allowable height by zoning is 36 feet and 3 stories. What's being proposed is 47 feet and 4 stories.
But that 36 feet also allows you for some additional height in the form of a roof pitch, right?
Mansard roof or pitched
And then
roof.
what does that height equate to when it's all said and done when you provide the adequate pitch?
I believe it's another 5 feet. I don't have the code in front of me.
Correct. That would be correct. The overall height in a multifamily residential zone would be 36 feet for a flat roof or 41 feet for a pitch.
Thank you.
The concept behind the additional height and the requirement for the additional height to be applied to pitch roof is to alleviate the massing, the volume.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for staff? You're done, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, so we can open up the public portion, and we'll start with the project manager, consultant, Armin Varg.
Good evening. The picture has a little bit better resolution than what we have on the plans.
And perhaps we could move that over a little closer to the dais, please. Thank you. Oh, you can actually move it.
Okay.
You could put it next to the podium,
Oh, next to the podium, facing you guys?
Yeah.
facing us,
Thank you.
so you could point to it and we'll see it.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us over here tonight.
And your name for
My
the
name
record,
is
please.
Armin Karai, BGA Engineering. I'm representing the owner on this project. What we have before you is an 18-unit apartment building that we will have set aside 2 units as very low income for tenants. It is a 4-story building, as mentioned before. There was a couple of items in the height that I want to discuss first. I don't know where we start. Let's just go over it. So it does provide 2 affordable housing over there, and the site right now has two lots. One is occupied by a single-family home. The other one has multifamily units on it. There are tenants on the site, which will be taken care of by providing what's required by law for their removal and relocation. So all the costs for that will be taken care of by the owners on the job. In addition, there'll be some affordable housing provided to the neighborhood. And what this project does is allow to have a smaller building. I know there is a lot of big projects in Glendale, but there are people that still tend to like to live in not such a big communities where after a while you get to know your neighbors and feel comfort with who lives around you, so you know everybody in the building, which sometimes you don't get that when you live in the big projects. So that allows for some families to feel comfort in knowing who's around you. So this will provide that. It will provide the open space. It has a recreation room, so to provide and create a community of the tenants within the building. We are getting some incentives based on the state ordinances and laws to get the additional height and some reduction in parking and some of the other incentives, but these are all what's given by state, and the reason is to provide additional units for the low-income people. We are close to a transit point, so we have on the 2 sides very close, within walking distance, we have major transportation that is going to be available to the tenants and the people that live there and the visitors also. The design itself it's like you say, was articulated, and it has a mixture of the different varying materials to provide I think something that would be intriguing and pleasing to the eye. It is a modern design. I think it fits well with what's in Glendale right now. As far as other questions, we did receive a copy of 3 emails from the tenants or the residents or neighbors. I think there was 2 of them from the building across, and there was 1 from the building right behind us. To the side of our project, to the right, it is a fire department over there. So the fire department kind of L's out. So on one side is completely fire department, which kind of turns back in there. So if they get the 2 lots on the rear, on half of the lot, it's occupied by the fire department, and there is a house on the left side of the right behind us. Across street is where we had the two of the emails was from the owners or the tenants, occupants to the opposite side of the street. And that's some comments about the height of the building. And what I have over here, if you don't mind, I'll give you guys. Is
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the building that they have sent us email. This is on the street. and it spans the whole block, pretty much the whole block. The height of the building across the street where we had the complaints on is within 2 feet of our total height. So it is not, even though they have a 3-story building, on the podium we have our 4-story, but by having our building recessed down, the total height, we are not too much away from them. But this would allow us to provide, the owners have really taken into additional cost of digging the ground and going into the ground, providing the subterranean parking. And this would allow them to have a little slightly larger units, so, and to be able to provide for the affordable housing on the project. It is, to me, I think that's a good give and take. And
So, quick question. You're
Yes, sir.
saying the podium is below street level?
no, it is not. We are only about 2.5 feet above the grade, above the street,
Okay.
where normally across the street, if you look at it, that based on the pictures I have, and I didn't measure it, but it appears to be about 7 or 8 feet above the street. So when you look from the street, their height of their building and our building is not going to be too far away from each other. So pretty much the same height on the both sides of the street.
I understand. Let me see if any of my colleagues have any questions. Go for it, Mr. Simoni.
By the way, I do agree with you. You know, across the street, it's the semi-subterranean garage does pop up more than the typical height, which was probably done a long time ago. I have a question in reference to your common open space, more particularly your planters.
Okay.
It seems you have an abundance of above-grade planters where you have your block planters where you build them up and you have trees, which is nice, but at the same time you have a lot of them. Open space is nice, but then, you know, this differentiation of height with a 3-foot planter restricts the use, et cetera. So I was wondering, at first I thought it was a clearance issue when I was looking at the building section to see what exactly was the thought process behind that, if you were trying to get some clearances. But I'm wondering if you could help me understand the abundance of above-grade planters in the common open space.
Well, the fact that being above grade is because they are on top of the parking garage. So we're limited in the fact that we cannot really recess them to it very easily into the ground for them to not. Now, some of the height and everything else, and maybe that is something that we can work on, but I think what the thought process was to use a lot of them for LID planters or something like that, so for biofiltration of the water to be going out. So that was one thought process. And some of it had, I might say, could be like just like the air rendering and stuff, so sometimes that might give it a little bit there. But we are not locked into any height on that. We don't have any problem with varying the height of the planters to give it a better look and just more pleasant as far as the outdoor space would be. We definitely would work with the landscape architect to help us in changing the height on that. But we don't have any problem with it. It's not something that it's.
You're not being driven by the LID kind of requirements.
Well, some would be. Some of the planters would have to be a little bit higher, but not all. I mean, I don't remember if we actually ran the LID numbers to see how much space do we need for biofiltration needs. But
That's
other
the
than that,
question
if
I
it's over than that, then I don't have any problem with it.
You have more, yeah, but
Yeah, we have a lot. You're right. We could vary it, and we don't have any problem with doing it.
for 18 units, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker. I can't read that name. Donna?
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 That's me.
Go.
Come on up.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm very impressed with you. I've never been to one of these before. Okay, I'm a neighbor. I'm across the street. I don't understand exactly everything that was said about the height of the building, but 4 stories for that neighborhood is too tall. The fire department is 3 stories. The Glendale Galleria across Columbus is 3 stories. The Glendale parking lot is 3 stories. Yes, I'm in condos that are 3 stories. The building next to it is 2 stories, and on the other side is the fire station parking lot. Big building, small, nothing. It's it's out of sync with the neighborhood completely. I'm sorry. Also, it's inadequate parking. Parking on Oak Street, well, right now, it's down the street from the Galleria. There is no parking. There will be no parking until after New Year's, period. But normally, there are half a dozen or less parking spots on that street, normally. You dump anywhere from 10 to 16 cars on the street. It's impossible. There is no more parking. When we have friends come to visit, they now have to sometimes park a block or two away. It would be very crowded. This is not Colorado. This is not Broadway. This is not Brand or Glendale Boulevard. This is a small residential street. We are not in the city center. We are not downtown. This building is just completely out of place for that neighborhood, is all I can say. Plus, I live across the street. I'm going to have to look at it. Aesthetically, I don't care for it, but that's neither here nor there. It's just too big. The building is too big and the parking is inadequate. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Next speaker, Florian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Florian Loser. I live at 424 Oak Street, right across. And I want to thank you to give me the opportunity to speak in opposition to this project. I have a number of concerns about this construction, but to be very honest with you, this is the first time I have seen pictures of this building, and it really quite threw me for a loop. It is ugly. It is another box in battleship gray and beige that is made up of little boxes. The height has already been an issue. It is outrageously high, much higher than any other building on Oak Street, and in fact, even adjacent streets, which will inhibit or eliminate the view for many condo units at the 424 Street building, diminishing their value. There's no question about it. View adds value. Everybody here knows that. Then there is the parking. That's already been mentioned. That is inadequate. And then there is, of course, the construction itself, the quality of life that goes down for years for us. Excavation, construction, noise, dirt, closure of the road, in part at least. Now, we've been through this in Glendale for years now with the big projects. Lexington was partly a one-way street because of the next building for years and years and years. And we're looking at this at Oak Street, which is a tiny little road by comparison. So there will be a massive impact on traffic and parking and the quality of life. Quality of life will also continue to be diminished because of parking, traffic, and increased noise. That simply is it. There is another thing, of course, that the housing need. But let's be honest about this. Glendale has built hundreds, if not thousands, of apartment buildings. None of the buildings at our capacity. Many of the buildings aren't even finished yet, so they are at zero occupancy. It just continues and continues and continues. At one point, when are our elected officials that we voted for on a platform of stopping the overdevelopment going to make good on their promise? There is an environmental impact. There is added noise, more water use, more sewage, more drain on the power grid, more household trash. All of these things have a negative impact on this city. And this project will only add to it, while at the same time diminishing the quality of life for everyone on Oak Street. So it is my hope that you will consider all of this and give the people on Oak Street, which is a lovely little neighborhood, a break and consider them first before this project, which has no social or housing need at this point, since we have so many unused empty apartment buildings all over the city, many still under construction. So please think of us, because we have to live with the consequences of your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to address one point that the speaker had mentioned, just so people understand how it works. In terms of noise, in terms of construction, in terms of all that stuff, the city have rules and standards that they have to abide by. And us as a board, we don't have the preview to tell somebody you can't develop on your lot because the construction is going to be annoying to your neighbor. Like, we don't have that power. That's one point I want to make. The other point, which is you're correct, and we can't communicate, have two-way communication. The other point I want to touch on is there are a lot of apartments that are maybe not occupied in Glendale, but this project is coming through the affordable aspect of development, which is completely different than other projects. And the exceptions they get it through state law that the city of Glendale can't even say, oh, you don't have to do that. Like, you have no choice. You got to abide by state law. So there is like a way around it. So you guys have to understand, like, Glendale has no say with when they come through the state law for increased height, when they provide a certain number of affordable units, you have no say. Anyways, anybody else want to say any comments? I thought you had something you wanted to say.
No, I think afterwards I could, during my time, maybe talk a little more about SB 1818, but if Mr. Chair, if you think now's the right time to maybe
I think
explain
now
a little
just,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, and in other words, what our chairperson was indicating is that state law, SB 1818, was enacted in Sacramento some time ago. And if an applicant provides certain affordable units, in return, they get certain incentives, such as height, let's say another story, increase in FAR, reduction in parking, etc. All this is state law. And so some of those items which this board usually has jurisdiction over in the form of mass and height and context and compatibility, etc. When it comes to SB 1818, the city has to abide by state law. And so some of the usual topics of discussion of those very things that you're referring to, sir, which is the height, look, feel, etc., is somewhat shortened when or this board doesn't have the same capacity to look at it. So, but there are certain things that we do look at, such as the landscaping, such as the look of the building, such as the colors of the building. We can make some suggestions as to the feel of the building and how it relates to, let's say, its massing in the form of the design. But you can't say, we cannot say it's too tall, you can't have that extra floor because it's state law.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simonian. I think we don't have any more speakers. Anybody else want to speak? You can come in, but you need to fill a card afterwards. Speak to the microphone, please. Name first.
We're one of the last houses on Oak. The parking is horrendous. If we have company, there's no place to park. It's like musical chairs. We've got to shift our cars around so people can come visit us. It's really annoying. They come down our street like they got shot out of a cannon. I have called the police so many times to get speed bumps. It's a road race on Oak Street. I cannot believe the way they drive sometimes. And that's ugly. You know, you go down Wilson, they're ugly. You know, I don't mind you building apartments, but get something that conforms with the street. It is such a narrow street, and right now it is so frustrating to park. It really is, and the speed. It is really bad on our street.
I know it because I live like one street away from this place, so I know it.
I don't know how many times I've called the police. I'm surprised they haven't had major accidents there. It's a real problem. And I don't know where all those cars, if they have 2 cars for each unit, where are they going to park? You only have 18 spaces. And if there's double those cars, where are they going to park? It's a real problem. And I've lived in Glendale 60 years, and I'm really disappointed what is happening to our city. I really am. You're making it a cement city, and you're overbuilding, and it's taking the charm away from the city. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, would you mind, excuse me, ma'am, would you mind just stating your name for the record just so that we have it?
It's Lola, and the last name is Physioc, Physioc.
Thank you. If you don't mind filling out one of these as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick comment as well.
Go for it.
And this is more to staff. In regards to speed bumps being put in on a public street, which is totally outside the jurisdiction of this board. But
Right.
is there any kind of a formal process, like a resident could go through, or a group of residents could go through to request such things, or how is it done in the past, or is it possible for residents to do that? And again, this isn't related to this case, but I would like to help you understand the process if possible.
There would be a process in terms of submitting a formal request to the Public Works, Traffic and Transportation Division, and then individuals that are concerned with parking on site, they can also, if the actual owners themselves grant a petition, there is a way of trying to request a parking permit
Parking permits.
area as well. So, but that would consist of a formal application and all the property, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but a percentage of the homeowners, actually, and that would include condominium owners, would have to sign for that petition and that formal request. So that, again, would be through the Public Works Department, and we would be more than happy to relay that information to you as well.
After the hearing, you
meeting,
could say.
correct, after the meeting.
That's an excellent question, Mr. Simonian. Informative. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Go for it. Please fill a card afterwards. Name.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Fabiola Duran, and I'm here representing my mom who went to go put water in the meters because I didn't know where the parking was. So I'm here to represent her. She's a single person, retired, and we've lived at that house. I grew up in that house 30 plus years. And it's really sad to see it just go away. We were never notified that they had sold the houses, the properties, until I think last December or so. That was our Christmas gift
Do you
for my
live on
mom's.
the site that's being demolished?
Yes, at 429 Oak, apartment 8. That's where she lives. And then we talked to the new owner, and I said, well, what's going to happen? And I wasn't given a lot of information other than, we're going to go on a different lease and blah, blah, blah. And that was about it. And we haven't heard anything ever since. The property is not being kept up. The lawn, my mom has to, with her hands, she pulls the grass, the weeds out, because she doesn't have a lawnmower or anything, And so I just, it's really sad because, she's on Social Security only and she's by herself. And so I wanted to know what's going to happen to her. She's devoted a lot of time, great tenant, has never missed a payment. So I want to know what's going to happen to my mom. Is she securing herself? Are they going to secure her a unit for the 2 low income only that they have?
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm gonna defer to staff to kind of like give you a little more.
If you don't mind allowing her to finish her
And-
time, if you're through, and if not, then
Yes, I'm pretty much done. I mean, I've had my mom on a low-income list for over 10 years, and I just get no response for her, and so I'm kind of worried what's going to happen to my mom. Okay. I would really appreciate if, the city of Glendale can take that into consideration for her to have somewhere to come back. She has church over here, her doctors, she doesn't drive, so public transportation, she knows it over here, and so her life is here in Glendale. Thank you.
with that said, we will be able to pass along the information to our housing division staff, and there is a just cause eviction ordinance here in the city, and so there are ways of going about it in terms of relocation and financial assistance and whatnot. So we will definitely give you that information as well.
Thank you.
If you don't mind.
Let's see. Any other speakers? I think we're done with speakers, so maybe there's one more.
Perhaps we can make an announcement. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Oh, perfect. Okay. Yes. Be sure to, if you don't mind raising your hands now, so I'm turning in a speaker card, so that way we know exactly how many are left.
Just name for the record.
No?
All right. Hi, I'm Amanda Nozaki, and I'm representing the Glendale Oaks HOA group. who is across the street from this lovely building. So anyway, kind of also echoing what a lot of others have said as well about the parking situation. There is also a concern for, I apologize, I was a little late, or very late to this meeting, but is there also going to be a pool at this facility? No? Okay, because currently, right now, we kind of face an issue where there are other residents that are not owners of our condos that essentially sneak into the pool area, and so that's why I'm just wondering, like, how can we accommodate this with additional residents when we're already struggling to try and keep people that are not supposed to be there out? So that's why that was another thing that we wanted to bring up as a concern, as well as situations of traffic and in regards to construction, like for whatever vehicles come through that area, is there going to be any plans for, I guess, other ways of diverting traffic so that way the residents or the neighboring residents can also reach their destinations as needed? So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can have the designer come back to allow him for a rebuttal period.
Hi, my name is Armin Garay. I'm with GA Engineering, representing the owners on that. I heard the concerned tenants and the residents of the neighborhood. And I understand that construction sometimes it creates inconveniences for the neighbors. And I know that because I'm involved with construction, and I'm sure the owners will do their best to be as neighborly as possible and try to do whatever they can to mitigate the effect, to reduce the effect on the neighbors. I mean, there are ordinances which limit the hours of the construction. I mean, there's certain hours that you can start and certain you can't work on a Sunday, you can't work on a holiday. So all of these things will definitely be taken into effect and will be enforced during the construction over here. There will be traffic control wherever there is the deliveries over there, so there'll be somebody watching the cars go by to reduce the effect on the traffic over there. There are some things that, one of the things that it really have to look at it, I mean, some of the comments I hear was from the condominiums across the street. It's a big, massive, gigantic project across the street. And I'm sure at one point, these were occupied by single-family homes over there. And everybody else on that neighborhood got inconvenienced to build their house, okay? And I'm not trying to say it was them, it was somebody else, but it was their house. The people that owned in these houses got inconvenienced over there. So, I mean, it is part of the natural cycle. I mean, it is the property was zoned for multifamily. Everybody else in that street is already built out to being whatever it is, and it's what they're right. I mean, they're not asking anything beyond what's given by their right in there. The people across the street got their right, they built their building, but they won't object to the people over here exercising their rights, which I think is kind of unfair. I mean, they try to do whatever they can to minimize the effect on them, but the truth is, it will provide affordable housing. They go with whatever the laws that city, state, county regulates it. And we're not asking for anything more than what the state law and the city affords us. And we appreciate it, and we appreciate your time, and we hope you support our project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion and open it up for deliberation. And I'll start with Mr. Simonian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'd like to just start off by saying I do appreciate what the applicant is saying, and at the same time, I certainly understand what everybody else is here to say as well. I think we talked about some of the SB 1818 issues, which are outside our preview. But in general, I do support the project because there's really not much we can do about the height. There's not much we could do about the parking reduction. There's not much we could do about the FAR increase. And when you put all that into a project, it's actually designed quite nicely. You might say that it's a 4-story and it's not compatible in that sense, but the different materials and the depth of the materials and how they're integrated into one another and how you have different materials kind of turning the corners and not just ending at a corner, all those are, I think, good architectural features. It's a compacted street. It's an impacted street. I do think that it would make sense for the residents to get together and try to get a parking permit assigned on your street, and in doing so, you'll at least alleviate all the mall traffic, because we've all been guilty of parking in these adjacent streets when the mall is full. I've certainly done it in the past. And there are times when the mall is full, and there's times, when people do speed through the area. So those are some things that I think we wanted staff to bring up to help. In regards to the overall context of the street, you have the fire department at the corner, 3-story, and then across the street you have a 3-story, but it's on top of a podium that's about 7 or 8 feet high. It is a very dense area. Now, because of this kind of downtown Glendale fabric was designed so long ago, the streets are narrower, so everything is impacted. It's not like Irvine, where they've designed the city for the next 100 years, and they've already taken all the density that could occur in the city in a consideration when they're designing the streets. It's the opposite has occurred in Los Angeles, and Silver Lake, and Atwater, and Glendale. In these older neighborhoods, everything was designed so long ago as far as the public facilities are concerned that population has now exceeded their capacity. And it's just what happens in these metropolitan areas, such as Hong Kong, such as Tokyo, such as New York, such as Los Angeles. And so it's no different. And it's interesting what the applicant brought up, because it's something I've brought up in the past. And at some point, Glendale was all ranches, and then the ranches sold, and they turned into, large 5-acre estates. And then the 5-acre estates got subdivided into 5,000 square foot homes. And then the 5,000 square foot homes got developed over time into 4-unit projects. And then the 4 units are now being torn down and turning into 18-unit projects. And one day this 18-unit, 20-unit will get torn down and will turn into a 50-story. It's going to happen. And every point in time, there were people that said, this is a bad idea because change is occurring, and for obvious reasons. But at the same time, it has happened. It's a natural transition. And so I do support the project. I wholeheartedly also support staff's conditions as well. I would just add that I think the planners are excessive. I think, they should minimize the planners, especially the height of the planners, and you could use turf, synthetic grass, if staff thinks it's a good idea. You could use ground cover and all these things which kind of allow it for a reduction of the planter height and a better integration. So those are my comments, but I do support the project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simonian. Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. Those very, very good comments, and I definitely echo those. We live in an environment where we have to, support that. Even though it may be that some buildings in Glendale are not fully occupied, there's still a great housing need in California in general. So that's why the state has passed these laws that kind of force it and shoves it down the throat of communities like Glendale. We don't have a lot of discretion. In fact, we are almost completely limited in our discretion here. All we can really talk to are some of the design aesthetics and some of the details and things like that. We have really in fact, no voice when it comes to some of these aspects. So I will also say that I generally support the project. I think that they have done a very good job breaking up the mass, doing some articulation in terms of the recession, and the angle of the front entry glass there is an interesting thing. It makes it a little bit more interesting than a pretty standard, boxy shape. And I echo the comments about the planters as well. I think that it would be much more welcoming of an open space if they were lower down and with the integrated seating as staff had suggested. So I think that that would be a very good change.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Ms. Arzumanian?
Thank you. I do like the project, the design of it. I think the different colors, the combo, it just works well. We've seen modern design like this around the city more and more, and they may not look nice on paper, but when they go up, they actually match the neighborhood, and it's a good change and a good design. So I generally like it, and I'm not going to repeat what already has been said. I appreciate your comments, Mr. Simonian. I would encourage the neighbors to do look at your options regarding the parking, speed bumps, and such stuff. Hopefully something can be worked out, but as far as the design and what we can do or comment on, it seems like everything was covered, and I appreciate staff's comments and conditions and the fact that they work with them to make sure when the project gets to us, it's in this shape, clean shape, and we can move on.
Thank you, Ms. Arzumanian. Ms. Boyajian?
Yeah, thank you for everyone here who explained us their concerns, and with majority of those I agree very much. But yes, unfortunately, we cannot do much in here. And then our function is mostly to consider the design issues in here. So design-wise, I think I looked at each elevation. They are quite different and very interesting, solved together, particularly on the corners of the building. And the main facade is very interesting, very vivid. And I agree with Ms. Arzumanian that when it will be built, it will look different because the renderings, unfortunately, cannot give us complete feeling of the materials and textures. And then regarding staff conditions, I agree with all of them. And I think also like to bring to the positive note, maybe the common area, I hope that it will be developed so well that neighborhood will have advantage of using it. So it will be a nice addition to neighborhood. So landscape architecture and lighting design will bring some life, another vibe to the street. So in general, I support the project.
Ms. Boyajian?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I support the project, and I think compositionally it is solved very well from design aspect. So let's hope that neighborhood will really enjoy having this building in there, and common areas will be used by everybody. Yeah, let's hope.
Just in terms of the common area landscaping, one of the ways that we've resolved this kind of issue is to actually depress the podium in certain locations to allow the landscaping to be at basically podium level. And that's generally most easily accomplished along the perimeter where the depression is kind of over the hoods of cars. Sometimes that affects whatever the required storage is, so we'd have to look at that. But if you wanted to work that into a condition, it's something we've done on many other projects and could make that space more usable where you could actually step into it. Seating could be in that area.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's something we've done on lots of other projects.
Thank you, Mr. Platt.
Spending evenings sitting there.
Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, and but in general, Mr. Platt, you know, if they have some raised planters, let's say, where they have you know, more mature trees, where they're able to get the bigger trees in there, but then instead of depressing it, but if they're using some ground cover or some sort of an aesthetic astroturf or whatnot, I would imagine that would work in regards to what we're trying to accomplish.
You're not going to have the required depth.
Yeah.
There's specific guidelines when it comes to artificial turf in multifamily residential zones. So I would defer to the actual regulations before the board suggests anything.
Which is, can you refresh our memory?
Actually, it's a very lengthy artificial turf. We'd be more than happy to work with the applicant. So based on your directions, but before you condition it, I would suggest that we go through it with staff and the applicant and thoroughly review the regulations. They're pretty substantial, and so I would
I think we'll keep it generic for them to work with you guys to rework the landscaping.
Sounds good.
I think that's a
would be
better
the
way to go.
suggestion.
Yeah, we generally also like to see the raised planters against the building because that leads to a little more privacy buffering between the units and the common space. So,
Sounds good.
Okay.
So
Can I make a motion then? Well, no, have you spoken
no.
yet? No, all right then.
you can. I have similar comments to the one that my colleagues have mentioned, so I'm in the same boat. But I want to speak to the parking issue in this area because I live very close to this project, and I know, like, I wouldn't vote for this project had it not come through the SB 1818, where that parking ratio is completely out of our hand, and we have no say, like, we can't say. And that was, like, voiced by my colleagues. So if this project was not an affordable building and it came just through the regular channels, obviously the city wouldn't even get it to us to review because you need to meet the minimum amount of parking required. And even if they did, we wouldn't go for it. But this one, we kind of have no say. In terms of construction, I think we addressed that issue. In terms of the design, I think the applicant did a good job. And I kind of agree with Ms. Arzumani when she said, like, on paper. And what she meant by that, like, for professionals with trained eyes, when we look at these things, we kind of understand how they're going to look like. For the public, you might not like it, but when it's built based on the actual materials and based on the depth, because these are just computer renderings, and I think it's a good-looking building because the mass, it's not like one full box, which they could have done just a complete full box. In the core, if you guys look at the core, it's set back. You have like voids. There's like mass on one end, and you have a void on the other end. I think it's well articulated in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And for an affordable building, the stuff that I've looked at in my professional career, they kind of try to like stay away from the materials, and you look at just like straight stucco building, which is that gets to the ugly stuff you guys are talking about. But over here, they kind of used different materials. I can count like 2, 3. There's siding, there's like different stuff, and I think they've done a good work. They've done a good job addressing that stuff. So based on that, I will entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the project with staff stated conditions. However, to condition number 1, we would add applicant to work with staff and attempt to reduce the height of the planters as it pops up above grade.
Or some of the planters.
Some of them.
I wrote out a potential condition: reduce the amount of raised planter area to increase usable area at podium level. Consider depressing podium at the perimeter to achieve this goal.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Is there a second?
So I'll second that.
I had a motion by Board Member Simonian, a second by Board Member Welch. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Arzumanian?
Yes.
Board Member Boyajian?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
And Chair Benlian?
Yes.
The motion passes to approve with conditions 5-0.
And to the public, you could wait afterwards and speak to staff about some of those items we talked about to obtain the process and the procedures of how to proceed.
Okay. There are no minutes for this evening's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Staff would like to wish everyone very happy holidays. This is the last Design Review Board meeting of 2019. We will see all the board members back the second Thursday in January. So again, we wish everyone a happy holidays and be thinking about who you would like to elect as the next chair for the Design Review Board. So with that said,
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
happy holidays.